Turn on, tune in, take off. A series of study support podcasts designed to launch you into university study. Episode 6. Introduction to Essay Writing.
My name is Jackie Corkwell. I'm an Education Advisor in the Learner Support Team. The topic of today's podcast is Introduction to Essay Writing. To present the topic, we've invited Sarah, who's currently studying at Sheffield Hallam University, to tell us about her approach to essay writing.
Hi, my name is Sarah and I'm a final year student. Initially, I struggled with writing essays, but gradually I developed a better understanding of how to approach essays as a writing task. And today, I will be telling you how I managed to do it.
So, with Sarah's help, we're going to talk about the main steps you go through when writing an essay, and about the basic essay structure. And the approach we'll be describing can be applied to any piece of academic writing, not just essays. But let's start with a simple definition. An essay is a piece of writing with a particular structure. It will have an introduction, main arguments, and a conclusion. It will be written in a formal academic style. An essay must focus on the title question, and the argument should be supported with appropriate referencing.
Students are initially quite uncomfortable with the academic style. We tend to write the way we speak or the way we would write to a friend. That's the first lesson I learned. You need to adjust your style of writing. And although it sounds difficult, you can actually learn a lot from reading the academic articles and books while you are doing your research and comparing their style to yours.
You mentioned doing research, which is one of the steps all students need to cover for any academic writing. But we always advise students start with clarifying the task. Before you start your reading and research, make sure you know what you're looking for. Ask your tutor if you're unsure. So the first step of essay writing is clarify the title. The next step is to do your reading. So the second step is reading and researching. Be selective and focused. Write a set of questions to guide your research and look for the answers while you are reading. Make sure you make good notes as you go along, covering where you found the information, and put down ideas, noting the title of the book or the journal and the page.
As I'm reading, I find it very useful to check the referencing guide and make sure that when I start reading from a particular book, I note the title, author, and year of publication, the full set of data I need to include in my list of references. Then, as I'm collecting information and quotes, I will note the page number. Another tip is to paraphrase as you go along where possible. This will help with avoiding plagiarism. Also, remember, most students spend too much time reading and don't give themselves enough time to draft and redraft the essay.
That's a very useful tip, which actually leads us to the third step of writing assignments, organisation and planning. You need to organise your work. Make a rough outline plan early on. When you've done your reading and collected all the information you need, you must evaluate what you've got.
At this stage, I find it useful to ask myself, have I clarified my main argument? Have I got enough evidence?
Once you've done this, you can proceed to the fourth step, which is writing an outline plan and developing your first draft. An outline plan will be a simple list of everything you need to cover in your written work in a particular order. So the introduction, the arguments you've identified, the evidence for and against those arguments, evaluation of the evidence, and a conclusion. Then you can start writing your first draft.
The secret here is to start with the part that seems the easiest and to keep going. I prefer to start with the conclusion. Knowing where I need to get to helps me to be consistent with my arguments and evidence when writing. At this stage I don't worry about style, and I write quickly in short sentences.
That's a good approach to writing the first draft. Once you've done it, develop it. Keep going back and develop it more. You may need to do this several times, improving the assignment with each version. Make sure you leave time between drafts for your ideas to simmer.
Between drafts, I think about whether my arguments are clear enough, whether I've included the most convincing evidence. Will I convince my tutor in my point of view?
At that stage, you should make sure your writing is clearly organised in paragraphs and that it follows your plan. Then you can proceed to writing your final draft, the final stage of writing an essay. Before submitting, check it really carefully for typing errors, spelling mistakes. Read it aloud to check everything is clearly written and keep redrafting until you are happy with the text.
I always ask a friend to read my essay before I hand it in, just because after days of drafting and redrafting I stop noticing my mistakes.
The essay structure. We outlined the main steps to go through when writing an essay. Now we will focus on the basic essay structure. It is important to remember that this basic structure underlies not just essays, but many other forms of writing. All essays will start with an introduction, which should explain what the essay is going to do. You explain how you interpret the question, identify the issues you are going to explore, and then give a brief outline of how you are going to do this. Here is an example of a short introduction for an essay which has asked our student to examine the Council of Europe's National Cultural Policy Reviews project, taking into account aims, methods of implementation and impact.
This essay will examine the Council of Europe's Programme for National Cultural Policy Reviews. By exploring the Council of Europe's resolutions, declarations and reports, as well as the examiner's reports and evaluation studies, this essay will discuss the background to the Council of Europe's involvement in culture and cultural policy. Then it will look specifically at the Programme for National Cultural Policy Reviews and will analyse the rationale for establishing it, its aims and methods of implementation. Finally, the essay will examine the outcomes and the impact of the programme by looking at how successful it has been. While admitting the contribution of the programme to the field of cultural policy research, in order to present the entire picture, the paper will also voice the criticisms and concerns of the results achieved by the programme.
Then you proceed to developing your arguments. The first paragraph will cover the first thing your introduction said you will address, and the first sentence will introduce the main idea of the paragraph. Other sentences in the paragraph will develop the topic and will include relevant examples, details, evidence, quotations, references. The last sentence in the paragraph should lead to the next paragraph.
Write as many paragraphs as necessary to develop your argument and remember to reference your work.
When that's done, you need to write the conclusion. The conclusion contains no new material. It simply summarises your arguments and the main themes, stating your general overall conclusion. Here's an example from the same essay we used above.
After presenting the aims and methods of implementation of the Programme for National Cultural Policy Reviews and its different strands and outcomes, one can conclude that the programme was a turning point in Europe as far as the monitoring and the evaluation of cultural policies is concerned. The programme was a long-awaited breakthrough in cultural policy research, providing invaluable assistance to policymakers in assessing and adjusting their policies. However, its impact in some countries was limited. Countries which lacked political consensus were unable to apply the recommendations of the panel of examiners. Even so, they benefited from the process of being involved in a cultural policy review. The local researchers working on the national reports gained confidence and became a part of the European cultural research community.
Finally, the essay should list all references and a bibliography. You need to refer to your course requirements for the correct form these need to be presented in. Some of this podcast is based on the Study Skills Handbook by Stella Cottrell, available from the Learning Centres. If you want further practical help, you can use our Drop-in Study Practice, which offers 20-minute sessions in both ADSET and collegiate learning centres. Go to Shoespace for more information. Alternatively, for more in-depth support, you can book a 40-minute education guidance appointment in Student and Learning Services by telephoning 0114 225 3813. This concludes this study support podcast. We hope it was helpful. Now we recommend that you listen to the other podcasts in the series to introduce you to other essential study skills. Good luck.